General Dempsey acknowledged that this would run counter to the president's policy, but he said, "He has told me as well to come back to him on a case-by-case basis." The general's statement lays bare the challenge the president will face in selling an expanded military campaign to a war-weary American public. Mr. Obama, seeking to allay fears of another Iraq war, has promised that American ground troops will not be involved in fighting the Islamic State, also known as ISIS or ISIL. In a sign of the administration's mixed message, the president pointedly did not call it a war, while his advisors later did. But the realities of a prolonged campaign, General Dempsey said, could make such a hands-off approach untenable, particularly if the battle against the militants moves into densely populated cities where airstrikes are less effective and the chances of civilian casualties are much higher. His candid testimony, hours before a divided House of Representatives began debating whether to approve Mr. Obama's request for authority to arm the Syrian rebels, drew expressions of concern from anti-war groups and could further complicate the political dynamic for the president. The White House insisted on Tuesday that Mr. Obama was not shifting his policy and that General Dempsey was not out of sync with his commander-in-chief. It's the responsibility of the president's military advisors to plan and consider all the wide range of contingencies, the White House press secretary, Josh Earnest, said to reporters. It's also the responsibility of the commander-in-chief to set out a clear policy. On Wednesday, Mr. Obama is scheduled to get a briefing from his military commanders at the Pentagon's Central Command headquarters in Tampa, Florida. The rare visit is described by White House officials as part of his effort to mobilize public support for the mission. But it is also calculated to soothe tensions with the military over who is in charge of the operation after Mr. Obama named retired General John R. Allen to be his special envoy to the coalition of countries fighting the Islamic State. General Allen will be based at the State Department. Already, Mr. Obama's policy has been tested by his commanders. General Dempsey said General Lloyd J. Austin III, who oversees the Central Command, had recommended putting Special Operations troops on the ground to direct airstrikes during a recent campaign by Iraqi and Kurdish forces to retake the Mosul Dam from the extremist militants. Mr. Obama rejected that recommendation, and General Dempsey said the United States used technology, a drone known as a rover, to compensate for not having its own advisors on the ground. The American advisors remained in the Kurdish capital, Erbil. The challenge will come, General Dempsey said, when Iraqi and Kurdish forces try to drive the militants out of densely populated urban areas like Mosul. In those cases, General Dempsey said, he might recommend deploying Special Operations troops to provide what he called close combat advising, essentially working alongside Iraqi commanders in the field and helping them direct their troops to targets. While the Americans would not fire weapons themselves, military experts said there was little practical distinction between the role General Dempsey described at the hearing and actual combat. "We've already got ground forces introduced, and they are performing combat missions," Paul D. Eaton, a retired Army general who helped train the Iraqi security forces and is now a senior advisor to the National Security Network, said on Tuesday. "I applaud the general for his candor. That will help the president in the debate greatly." Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel testified along with General Dempsey, but their appearance appeared to do little to